The latest news, updates, and more from the world of health and medicine. This is Medical Minutes with Wish TV's medical reporter, Dr. Mary Gillis.
From Wish TV, I'm medical reporter Dr. Mary Gillis, and this is Medical Minutes on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Over 34 million people across the country have type 2 diabetes. This is equivalent to 1 in 10, and rates are set to rise. Indiana, well, we rank as one of the top states with the highest percentages of diabetic cases. In this week's episode, I speak with Dr. John Whyte, Chief Medical Officer at WebMD, about how you can take control of your diabetes and if it's possible to reverse it. We also talk about how to avoid the diagnosis in the first place. Our conversation is next. Joining me now in our newsroom is Dr. John Whyte, Chief Medical Officer at WebMD. So great to have you. And I hear we are talking about type 2 diabetes. Absolutely. And we're talking about ways, hopefully, to reverse type 2 diabetes. Well, the statistics are alarming. From what I understand, 1 in 10 people, or 34 million Americans, suffer from this disease. So first, briefly talk about the disease and who's most likely to get it and why. You know, diabetes really is about energy balance. It's glucose and insulin. And in type 1 diabetes, that's insulin deficiency. So patients' pancreas can't produce enough insulin. So they're going to need to be on insulin for the rest of their lives, and they're diagnosed early. Today, we're talking about type 2 diabetes, which is insulin resistant. So your body still makes insulin, but your cells aren't processing it properly. So I can't get glucose, the energy that I need, into my cells, and my blood sugar rises. And that starts a cascade of complications, issues with blindness, diabetes, #1 cause of blindness in the United States, kidney disease, problems with our limbs of tingling and numbness. So it's a real challenge. 1 million people are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes every single year. So the goal really is, how do we recognize it early on? Because about 20% of people with type 2 diabetes don't even know they have it. And then how do we get them on a path to get back to better health? Wow. So what I'm hearing is at one point, maybe the body was responsive to a certain amount of insulin, but as we progress into the disease, it needs more and more to recognize what's happening and get that glucose into the muscle for energy. And then also there are repercussions to this disease. I mean, you spoke about blindness and then kidney disease, our limbs, risk for amputation. So these are serious consequences. And then diabetes, is that linked to other conditions too? You know, one of the biggest concerns that I have when I have to tell patient they have diabetes is the risk for heart disease, the risk of strokes. You know, women typically don't have heart disease till their 60s, their late 50s maybe, because of the role of estrogen and the protection of the hormones that they have. But if you have diabetes as a woman, you're more likely to get heart disease in your 40s, in your early 50s, which is not something that we typically see. So that's why it's so important early on to get good information. And that's why I wrote this book, Take Control of Your Diabetes Risk, to really empower patients. We really need to focus much more on prevention and give folks tools. You know, as doctors, we often are too quick to prescribe medication, right? Here's a drug that you're going to be on for the rest of your life. We don't spend enough time saying, okay, here's what you need to eat and here's how you do it. Here's the amount of exercise. Why are we writing exercise prescriptions for patients and saying, this is what you need to do every day or every other day? And then really encouraging them and empowering them. That's the way that we're really going to address diabetes and prediabetes. Dr. Whyte, this strikes me as so interesting because first what I'm hearing is establishing a great relationship with your primary care doctor, which will empower a patient. This is just what I'm hearing, empower a patient to maybe be a part of their recovery, in addition having some sort of a person who's on their side. And it's not only the what you need to do, but the how. Okay, yeah, I do need to do this, but how do I do that? So following through with that how and getting that information from your doctor is key. And then Dr. Whyte, so question is, can you reverse diabetes? So what I've heard is no. Once you're diabetic, and you manage it from there. You tell me.
If you asked me 5 years ago, could you reverse diabetes, type 2 diabetes, I'd say no way. Because we used to think by the time that you're diagnosed, 50% of your beta cells, those cells in your pancreas that produce insulin, have burnt out. But what we have learned in recent years is that many of those cells can regenerate or at least regain function. And if that's the case, especially early on, then you can reverse type 2 diabetes, even pre-diabetes. But the point is, you have to make those important lifestyle changes. You have to be consistent about that. And maybe, reverse or cure, there's different terms that we can use. But Mary, I often talk about remission, kind of in the field of, cancer. You're still at some risk, but you can kind of put, your insulin issues at bay, right? And get your blood sugar back under normal control. And we've seen that in numerous studies, the diabetes prevention program, some other studies where people made lifestyle changes, lost 7% of their body weight, they got their blood sugars back under normal control.
Well, I love sort of the comparison to remission, right? And those beta cells in the pancreas, those new studies are saying, yes, it can. Yeah. So if that's the definition of reversing, then hey, but that's so Indiana ranks as one of the top states with the highest percentage of type 2 diabetics. So what tips do you have for them, not only those who are diabetic, but maybe sort of on borderline, as you mentioned, pre-diabetic?
Because if you have pre-diabetes, that's the best opportunity and the best chance to reverse it or put it in remission. So sure, we talk about what you eat and what you need to eat. And we do all need to eat more fish, at least twice a week. Only 20% eat it once a week. The rest eat none. We want to consume fruits and vegetables every day. We say have it at every meal. That might be too much for people. At least focus on every day. And then really, one tip you could start doing today is make water the only beverage that you drink. Think how many calories we consume through beverages, how much sugar is in a soda, is in iced tea. Just drink water and you'll start to lose weight. And then it's about exercising smarter, not longer, and think, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. You don't have to go to the gym. You can do 10 minutes of power walking 3 times a week. You can do high intensity exercise for 30 seconds followed by rest. Repeat that 4 times. Do that 4 times a week, that's 16 minutes. Several studies have shown you can return your blood sugar to normal if you're consistent. These are the types of strategies I talk about in Take Control of Your Diabetes Risk to say, hey, this is what you need to do. Because to your point, it is about that action plan, right? It is about putting into motion what you're going to do in order to restore blood sugar to normal. You just can't wish it. You actually have to have a plan. And I literally give you a plan in the new book.
Yeah, wow. So we can have a plan, but we got to follow through. So, okay, right. Dr. Whyte, tell me about your book. What inspired you to write it? And what do you hope people get from it?
So the book is called Take Control of Your Diabetes Risk. And it really was inspired by, to your point earlier, a lot of people, once they get the diagnosis of diabetes or pre-diabetes, I find they first say, are you sure? Like, you're certain about this? And 99 times out of 100, it's accurate. But then they almost become resigned to the fact that, oh, hey, I've got diabetes, I'm going to have to live with it. And what I'm trying to empower people with is for type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes, you don't necessarily have to live with it. You may be able to reverse it. If you're on medication, you might be able to come off of it, or you might at least be able to reduce the amount of medication that you're taking. So that really was the goal, to inspire people, to empower people with the knowledge that they have the ability to take control of their risk.
I love that. I mean, such an important message. Once you get diabetes, it's like, wait, are you sure? And 99% out of 100, that's pretty good stats. And, and then the awareness of you're not resigned to a life with diabetes. There's something you can do. And there's something that you and I, as a practitioner, will do it together. Right. So this is so wonderful. All right, please, anything else you'd like to add? Tell the Hoosier State.
The only other point I would remind people is get screened. So many of us have not been going to the doctor during the pandemic. So we've missed appointments, and you want to get that blood sugar checked. There's different tests, as you know, that you can measure, the hemoglobin A1C, random plasma glucose. You don't even have to fast anymore. And we can tell whether or not you have prediabetes or diabetes. And that's the first step. Get diagnosed and then empower yourself with the knowledge of what you need to do to reverse it or at least prevent progression.
I love it. Dr. Whyte, thank you so much. Congratulations on your book, and really appreciate you joining us. It's going to be great information for everyone here in Indiana. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
This has been Medical Minutes from Wish TV. I'm medical reporter Dr. Mary Gillis. Be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast and check out new updates every week. You can also learn more at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook.
Learn more and get more with Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.